everyone. Welcome to the July 22nd regular board meeting of Sewer Authority Midcoast. May we have roll call, please?
Director Blanchard.
Here.
Director Slater-Carter.
Present.
Chair Penrose.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Boyd.
Here.
And Director Reddick.
Here.
Do we have public comment? Oral communication? Then we will move on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion?
I would like to ask some questions about 3D and 3C.
Okay, what about A? Anybody want to question A?
Move approval of item 3A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So item 3B, you had questions now?
Yes, the pages are not numbered like the rest of at least my copy. Under check register for vendor 0141, city print and mail, I just would like to ask, it says, it's a small amount, $200, for printing inter-office forms. Is that right? Sam doesn't print their own inter-office forms? They outsource that, even though there are two items on the warrants for copier leases?
Huh?
Depends on what kind of form it is.
If it's a triplicate form,
You can't.
then we can't print those. If it's most of the regular printing, yes, we do in fact do in office, but if it's a
Templates.
triplicate or if it's a special type of form, we do not have that ability to do in office. So we have to send that work out.
Okay. On that same page, coastsidebuzz.com, let me preface this by saying I love Coastside Buzz. I think it's a good public service and it's a very great information source. But I noticed that in June, the same amount was paid, $1,500 to Coastside Buzz for monthly promotion, which makes me think this is a monthly payment. And that comes to $18,000 a year to be on a local website. And I've looked this up on Coastside Buzz, and you can click on the SAM presentation there, and it's the website. So,
It's a link.
yes, it's a link, yeah, to the website. So,
Leonard used to do that for free.
yeah. So that's just a question I'm throwing out there that 18 grand a year for a local website, as great as it is, seems a bit much to me.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So was that done under the general manager's delegated authorities to enter into a contract?
Yes, I believe it's a recurring thing which has been done in the past, so it's something where the agency also, the Coastside Buzz also posts all our board meetings on the YouTube and a lot of other things associated with it. So I can bring it back, but it's an old contract which is recurring every month.
So there's
We can
more,
definitely look at it.
there's more
to
than
that,
just having it on a website.
yes.
It seems like a lot of money though. I think maybe we ought to bring that up for discussion
We can, we'll bring,
at
bring more
at
details.
another board meeting.
Yes, we'll bring more details of what all does it
Yeah.
contain, and then we can discuss it.
Is there any way to tell what Sam gets for that money?
Hits,
Yeah,
things like that, metrics?
yes, we can,
Okay.
we can bring it back.
I think that should be done. No, this is a point of information. Vendor 0381 on the 2 pages farther, Liebert Cassidy Whitmore gets an annual SMCERC membership for $6,100. That's the San Mateo County Employee Relations Consortium. And I'm wondering why the payment actually goes to a legal firm. I looked them up. They do specialize in employee relationships, but San Mateo County Employee Relations Consortium, or SMCERC, searching on their website, there's absolutely nothing comes up. So, what's that about?
We have all of those, so you might look at the attached items with the checks.
Here, I can talk about it if you
Yeah,
want,
right.
Christian. So the San Mateo County Consortium is Lieber Cassidy's consortium for San Mateo County that provides training for managers, HR professionals, regarding all different HR topics. And they have a monthly meeting, or a monthly training, and we're all able to attend. We can send as many people as we want. So it's a very cheap way to get training.
So it's things like sexual harassment and,
No, not that, because that would be more specific. It would be more like a manager training,
okay,
or like, I did one on disability, there was one on succession planning.
okay.
There've been a lot, I just can't keep them all in my head, I'm sorry.
How many employees attend these meetings?
So I know I've attended a lot, we sent the intern to one, Kishan and Tim have attended.
Tim also attended, Kishan, yeah.
Yeah.
Myself and Tim attended.
So we might review that contract when it comes up to see, you know, what it is
Renewal.
we're paying for and all that sort of thing, and it sounds useful.
It's very
It
useful.
does sound useful, but I find it amazing that.
So it's on Lieber Cassidy's website, there's an area called consortium, and that's where it's found.
I sure didn't find that, and I sure didn't, when I searched their site, nothing at all came up. So, that's what brought this question up, because I didn't know what
It's a
the
good question.
SMCECA, or whatever it is, was. So now, moving to the aging report, this is now 3C. It's internally numbered at page 5 of 9. This is getting to be a sore point at GCSD indeed. We're shown as being $27,031.77 in arrears for over 120 days. And I am told that it's more like 420 days. And the same figure is given in the summary at on the last page there. Our staff informed me today again that our accounting system shows that has been paid. It's been long paid. It was originally paid on time. That staff sent Sam our accounting results and proof of payment and documents, etc., and never got a response from Sam. And no more information except that we're still being told we're $27,000 in the red. So, can we figure that one out?
Yes, we are actually waiting for the audit results to come for the 17-18, which Cropper is working on. So these issues are being dealt with in that, and then we've already told
This
them.
goes back to the previous audit.
Right.
That was finally done way late. And this one, the latest one's also way late now. So, we'd like to see this straightened out because, I know our staff has put a bunch of time into it and, pulled their hair out, trying to figure out what the problem is. They can't find it, so we'd like to know.
Yeah, we are pretty close to getting the audit completed. We've interacted with the audit staff, auditor, and given a whole bunch of documents. In fact, a lot of documents went today also, so they'll be reviewing it, and we hope to bring it very soon. Probably next month is our intention, but we'll see how it goes. We're trying our best to get it done as quickly as possible, because a lot of things have been done at the time when Stacy was not there, so we're trying to find documentation, and that's why it took a little longer time. But I believe now we're getting close to completion, so we'll soon bring it back to the board.
Okay, thank you.
So these issues will be sorted out.
When that issue is, you have what you think is a definitive answer, please let our staff know.
Yes, Sure.
So, and with that, I would like to move to approve items 3B and 3C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So at this stage, we're going on to,
Madam Chair,
yeah,
I'd like to recommend that we move up an item from closed session, item 10D, related to the earth litigation. I think it would be good if we could deal with that before going to item 4C in regular business.
we will be, but we're going to be doing the open session presentation prior to the closed session.
Okay.
And we'll do that we'll handle 4C after the closed session,
Okay,
okay?
Just as you were suggesting.
okay.
So we'll move on to 4B.
4A, presentation you said?
I don't have 4A here.
Yeah, there's no staff report, it's just a.
Yeah, there's no staff report, it's just a presentation, so.
Just shows on the agenda.
Oh, it's just at the top, and, okay,
Yeah,
all right. So we'll be moving on to 4A.
Yes, so we have a PowerPoint presentation, so we like to
So
use
we're
the
gonna
screen.
move, so we're not in your way.
yeah. Anyone who wants to sit here?
Thank you.
Free.
Sign.
I can definitely. June sign too?
Yeah.
Move out of these chairs if anyone wants to sit here. Take up space. Musical chairs. And see
I didn't see you back there. I see that now. They're ready to be signed? Okay, you can just stick them right there and I'll get to it.
I like Susie's chair, I want one of those.
The ball?
Yeah?
Go get her. You're welcome to sit down.
I wouldn't do that now. And I wouldn't feel you.
Stacy?
Too dark?
Okay, so we have Carissa, Vice President from Electroscan Incorporated. Electroscan was here last week and they did a free demonstration for us in the access road right opposite our plant and showed us how good the technology is. So we thought we should share it to the board so that they could take it back to their member agencies and use it wherever applicable. So I'll hand it over to Carissa, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me and making some time in to your guys' schedule tonight. And also thank you very much for setting up a really successful demo. The results are really interesting. I included just kind of like the high level results without getting into the super nitty gritty. But first I wanted to kind of explain to you where Electroscan fits in the toolbox for sewer assessment and how it works, because it's actually, in my opinion, really interesting and it's a concept that we all know, and having it apply to sewers is just really unique and awesome. So I'm going to take it to this EPA study where the EPA had actually did a benchmark against CCTV where we visually inspect sewer pipes versus Electroscan, also called Focused Electrode Leak Location, or FEL. And this EPA study that was done in Kansas City in 2010, it was really interesting. They were looking for sources of infiltration. Not active infiltration, but places where water can come into a pipe and infiltrate. And CCTV identified one pipe as having the worst sources of infiltration. And when that exact same pipe had FEL performed on it, it was actually identified to be the pipe with the least amount of potential leaks. And so the EPA concluded that CCTV is not a good indicator of sources of infiltration. And in fact, during the study, it recorded even fewer infiltration-related defects after the pipe was cleaned with a jet vac, where the jet vac removes evidence from the pipe. So that's kind of like the problem that electroscan is looking at. CCTV can tell you a lot about a pipe, but it really also has its limitations to what you can see. So the California EPA, they have investigated this technology as well. I don't know if you guys know Brian Elder or Jim Fisher, but they are basically on the board of the EPA in Sacramento. They've been out on demonstrations, and they have recommended this technology basically as a best practice to combat SSOs and to identify infiltration. Another document I'll leave behind with you guys is ASTM. This is basically the international gold standard. If you specify a technology or a material or a pipe material, you specify its ASTM. This is what kind of governs this technology. And so we basically go by ASTM standard, which guides our reporting and things like that.
What does ASTM stand for?
I believe it's like the Association of Standards and Materials, the International Association for Standards and Materials.
Thank you.
Yes. So electricity actually mimics water with the idea that it takes the path of least resistance. Just as water runs along the outside of a pipe and finds a place to fall into the pipe and enter in and infiltrate, electricity will do that as well. So here we have a pipe. Our probe gets pulled through by a jet truck, and we have our electrical tri-electrode that's coming off of our probe. So as it's coming to that opening in the pipe, that electricity should not be able to escape the pipe wall. It should be completely contained within that pipe. Unless it comes to an opening, a crack, a joint that you would never be able to see inside with a camera, where there's missing mortar and the sealing capabilities are gone, that electrical current escapes at that point. And the way electricity works is the only way that electroscan can pick up a defect is that electric current actually travels through the earth back to a grounding stake that we have pushed into the earth next to our truck. And it can travel for thousands of feet this way. So the only time we're able to pick up a defect is if that same current that was inside the pipe pings back to our grounding stake. So that's how we're able to confirm that there is in fact an opening in the pipe wall. And what we do is we find a spike or a curve. And that is kind of the size of the orifice. That's the area that we're really looking at. That's the defect. How much electricity escaped over what distance. And so that was kind of an elementary little example. This has actually also been confirmed in COMSOL multiphysics, which is used all over the world to basically confirm ideas in it brings together basically geophysics in a way where you can test this against pipe materials, different soil types, different diameters of pipe. So not only are we able to confirm this by digging up the ground and confirming that there's a hole in the pipe, but we were able to match this in COMSOL as well. And this program is basically makes or breaks technologies in our industry. If you can't prove it in COMSOL, it's because it's not working the way that you're saying it works. Our positional accuracy is within 1 centimeter. So that was another thing that we confirmed in COMSOL. So this is a very accurate, high resolution technology. We're basically collecting in between 10 and 20,000 data points in every scan that we do. So this is where we were last week. And we scanned 2 pipes right outside of the treatment plant. And the pipes were first scanned, they were labeled both as vitrified clay pipe. But our operator had a suspicion that that wasn't the case of the materials, which we were able to later confirm. These were 21-inch pipes. One of them was a cured-in-place pipe, where the host pipe had been lined with cured-in-place pipe, and then the pipe right next door to it was vitrified clay pipe. And here's a little map kind of where we were right outside of your treatment plant. So you have pipe 1 and then pipe 2. Here's an image of the guys all out there. So the first pipe right outside of the treatment plant was cured-in-place pipe. And really the way that this technology came about was that people started having concerns over cured-in-place pipe and its ability to last a 50-year useful life. A cured in place pipe is basically a sock that is filled with resin and inverted into a pipe and then cured to take shape of the host pipe. But if that curing process happens, it's basically like a chemical cocktail. If that cure doesn't have the right temperature, if it doesn't have the right accelerator to resin ratio, if it doesn't have the right temperature throughout 360 degrees, all the entire length of this over, almost 450-foot pipe, you're gonna have what we call resin washout, air soft spots, things like that. And what we're seeing along the bottom of this pipe is what we like to call pinholes, or we could also call it death by 1,000 pinholes, where this pipe really should have a completely flat line that no electricity was able to escape. There was small traces of electricity that were able to escape that pipe wall. And that is something that we see throughout really, that we're the US, all over the US, and Japan, Germany, the UK, and it's not unique to California, so.
So is that a potential source of INI?
Yeah, so what we look at is, the unique thing about electroscan is we are able to look at INI whether or not there's a wet weather event happening or not. So what we basically are looking at is how much electricity is escaping, but is this actively leaking INI right now? It may or may not be. We look at and measure every pipe under the same storm condition, that there's 1 foot of water perched over the top of the pipe, and the pipe is laying at a 1% grade. So you can make everything relative to each other. But whether it's actively infiltrating in that moment or not, that's really gonna kind of depend on the wet weather event that's happening in that time. So our ASTM guides us to look at defects in small, medium, and large based on the amount of electrical amplitude. So we had 2 small defects, and those were probably defects that you would be able to see with the naked eye. And then as far as pinholes, which sometimes inside of a pipe, it will look like the pipe is almost sweating. Sometimes you'll see active pinholes. They're very, very small. We found 342 in this pipe.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and this is what we're looking at. So this is a piece of cured in place pipe. You're often asked to send a coupon to a lab, and you can't see any visual defect here on the top of this coupon that was taken and cured inside of a pipe here. But you can see that there's a little bit of back pressure on there to mimic a pipe. You can see that there's liquid dripping through. This is exactly what electroscan can find, but without having to do this on a coupon basis. We're doing this 360 degrees for the length of the pipe. This pipe right here is actually a Northern California pipe right outside of Sacramento. This pipe is 16 months old, and you can see these little,
Now, is that a pinhole?
yeah, that's a pinhole. This is under a heavy wet weather event, and we ended up finding 160 pinholes in this pipe that was 16 months old. So what we're finding is cured in place pipe, if it isn't cured properly, if the cocktail isn't mixed right, that it might look good visually when you very first inspect it, but after a couple of wet weather cycles, we're seeing some of them end up like this. Not all of them by any means. I believe your cured in place pipe was installed in 2012. So I mean there are some years on that pipe, but you can see that there's also some pinholes going on. So it's unfortunate, but it's something where that pipe is now out of the warranty, but it's not going to do its job for the life that you guys wanted it to do its job for. This is kind of another sort of, Ken Carey kind of wrote the book on sewers, and this is why he really started investigating electroscan, was
What's your definition of pinholes in size? Is it a millimeter, is it half a millimeter?
so we
Is
define
a-
it by the amount of electric current that can basically that comes out of each pinhole, and it's below 100 milliamps, which is very, very, very tiny. So our ASTM defines all of that. Anything above 100 that's considered a small defect, and then anything above that 100 to 400 is medium, and then 400 and up is considered a large defect.
And are all those pinholes bound to leak?
Yeah, so if you were to put some back pressure on that, like on a coupon, if you were to take a piece of that cured in place pipe, you would be able to pull water through it. And you have to think that some of these pipes, they're in the wet earth, depending on your groundwater where the pipe is. There could be what we call soakage, where the pipe is just kind of wet all the time, and it basically becomes saturated. If it's not cured all the way, it's porous. So that's kind of what we're looking at with these pinholes.
Can you translate the, sorry,
No.
can you translate the current to the gallons per minute?
Yeah, we do. So I'll show you that on the next pipe since I'm a few slides in, because we also have a VCP pipe. So we actually, what we do is we take each spike and we kind of put it under these storm conditions, and we come up with an estimated gallon per minute for each spike that we find.
So your definition of a pinhole is something that is small enough that water can pass through,
But you typically cannot see it with the
but
naked eye.
it's invisible to the naked eye.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
so,
Unless there's active water, good water pressure on it, then sometimes you can see them like how I showed in the video.
I'm trying to think of some of the engines I've worked on, and you're down to things that you can barely see in terms of spacing.
Mhm.
And so it's smaller than that even.
Yes, yeah, so we have this system that we set up at trade shows where we have several coupons of CIPP.
Now define coupon for all of us. I'm used to a coupon being I go to the grocery store and,
A coupon is, it's probably was in your CIPP spec, it's very standard. When you put a pipe in, at the very end of the pipe, typically it's specified that the contractor needs to take a coupon where they have cured that part of the
sample?
pipe, a sample, and send it to a lab, and they test it for flexural strength, for porosity, for all of these different things. But the contractors, they make sure that they do a very, very, very good job testing that coupon that they know they're sending to the lab. We don't know what happened 200 feet in the pipe. So
Right.
that's kind of what we're looking at.
okay.
Again, this is another sample of our repeatability, one, but also that this agency required fell inspection upon installation of their cured in place pipe. There were some defects here, and then they also did another fell inspection at the warranty date before they accepted the pipe, and there was no more questions with the contractor. And you can see where the pipe had actually gotten a little bit worse a couple of years down the line. So that's what fell inspection is kind of measuring. Okay, we know we have defects. Are they getting worse? How fast are they getting worse? So that way you can adjust the useful life of your pipe as well. This is another example of those coupons where we're basically taking two electrodes, touching it to either side of the plastic. Can electricity transfer through or not? That's what electroscan is basically doing. We have a ground stake on the outside, an electrode on the inside. Is that electricity able to pass through that piece of plastic? So this is what a perfect CIPP liner should look like. No defects, no pinholes, no nothing. The people who wrote the book for CCTV codes, PACP inspection, who manually is kind of adopted across the US, we all kind of use the same codes as this company called WRC. They are a 100-year engineering firm. They're considered kind of the grandfather of CCTV codes. They have adopted Electroscan and represent Electroscan across the entire UK, and they recommend Electroscan to not only certify cured in place pipe, but also to look for infiltration.
Is that a brand new cured in place pipe that shows perfect?
Yeah, that was a new one.
And how long do you expect it to stay perfect?
We would see, that's the thing with Electroscan, is it's a snapshot in time. So you would really need to do, we recommend doing another inspection before the warranty period is up. On average, liners have about a 2-year warranty, and typically cities do a CCTV inspection at that time anyway. But if you do an Electroscan inspection and you had it in your specs that this is what we're going to use to accept the pipe and inspect the pipe, you have to pass this. Then it's kind of like an insurance policy.
So on a leaky pipe, can you somewhat calculate the liters per second per linear foot or 10 feet?
Yeah, we do it in gallons per minute, inch diameter mile. And that the EPA likes that. They like it in consent decrees and stuff like that. They ask for that metric. So that way you're able to compare a 10-foot, 15-inch pipe against a 450-foot, 21-inch pipe.
Right.
So apples to oranges. And then this was your vitrified clay pipe, and this is why our operator thought that that first pipe wasn't clay, because you can see here, this pipe has, and this is extremely common, this pipe has very small leaks at every joint. This was an old VCP pipe. You guys had, rehabbed its next door neighbor, the one right off the plant. And this is another way to prioritize pipe. Obviously, the decision was made not to rehab the one right next to it, and maybe that was the right decision. When you electroscan an entire area, from that point you say, okay, I have this much money, I can afford to do this much rehab. Let's look at the pipes that are the worst and make sure that we really get the biggest bang for our buck. But you can also see the difference of the scan. There's a joint every 4 feet, it looks like, and you can see the accuracy of this. And Kishan, I believe you were out on the demo, so you saw that, the spikes coming up kind of at every joint live. There's no operator interpretation, there's no judgment calls, the data is what it is. Again, here's another look at these joints up close. And all of them were pretty similar, but there's a ton of different sorting tools where you can look at the gallon per minute for each defect, which you can kind of see right here. We sorted it by gallon per minute, so the very worst defect is this one right here, which would leak 1.33 gallons per minute under that condition where you have 1 foot of head over the water, the pipe's laying at a 1% slope, so every defect is comparable. If you only have money to fix one defect, we're gonna make sure that you're fixing the one that has the highest potential to leak.
So is that the highest leak that you found on our line?
Yeah,
So gallon a minute.
yep, 1.3 gallons per minute. This, when it comes to clay, this is another one of those situations.
Inflow for
The
plant.
entire pipe was leaking 17, has the potential to leak 17 gallons a minute. There's 25 defects spread along 17 gallons a minute. They were all pretty evenly sized,
Tim, our
so.
daily flow into the plant,
Good.
our daily flow into the plant,
Right now?
Yeah.
About 1.3.
MGD,
million
MGD.
gallons.
million gallons.
So inflow is on any particular segment of pipe. All of the laterals in all of our neighborhoods leak, all of them. And they're going to leak a lot more than this. All of them. So perspective is really essential in something like
Right.
this. This is great information, but we have to think in relative terms.
Again, what happened with this is all of the joints are, I would guess that that pipe is probably 60 years old or more if I had to take an average. They were using basically tar rope and mortar. They didn't have the high-tech, rubber gaskets and seals that we have nowadays, double seals, triple seals. At this point, all of the sealing capabilities of that pipe are basically not there anymore, so water is able to come in freely if it's on the outside of the pipe. But I just want to make one more comment is what I found interesting is that those two pipes were neighbors and the decision was made to rehab one and not the other. So it would have been, interesting to have a pre and post, how, if they were installed at the same time, they're the same diameter, you could assume they were in the same condition. You have the crew there, you might have wanted them to, line that one as well. It's hard to tell. Again, just looking at different cracks and things like that in pipes, finding a crack on a camera is great, but can you tell me that water is able to seep through this crack, or is it superficial? Does it go all the way through the pipe or not? And I kind of bring to the end here, I just want to show you the repeatability of the technology. This was done by WRC in the UK, and the last pipe was actually scanned backwards. They wanted to really verify that this technology was repeatable, so we have scan 1, scan 10, and then they decided to run it backwards on scan 15, and you can see how repeatable this technology is. Are there any questions?
If your pipe is not a foot under the water table and it's pressurized force main, would this technique find places where water could leak out?
Yeah, so we don't say whether or not the water can leak in or out. Typically, infiltration is the issue.
Right.
But yeah, exfiltration, and that's another thing. And if you know that you have a 3-foot water table, or if you know that your pipe is under this level of pressure, that is something where we can even tweak that gallon per minute to be more accurate for your system. We did actually look at the force main maps for your system, and one of the issues that we have is access. There's just not access points for us to, we could scan about 2,000 feet at a time. There was one access point, 11,000 feet, so we're just kind of at a standstill to really be able to,
And this only
We have
works
the
with
bypass stations,
non-ferrous
why
or
can't we-
non-metallic?
yes. Yep, so our limitations are, any non-metallic pipe, if it's coated, there's a liner in it, you can check that liner. And we're also limited by the length of our cable, which is about 2,000 feet. And access points, we have to enter the pipe, this is an in-pipe inspection.
And in your experience, what type of pipe passes the test best?
UV cured in place pipe.
Between the bypass stations.
So I would guess that that
She
was
said she wanted 2,000
a
feet.
steam cured pipe. UV cured pipes, they're actually made out of kind of like a fiberglass, like a glass-like
Wanna look at the
material
map later.
that, and they're
It's
cured
not
with
making
light.
sense.
And they seem to, in my opinion, perform the best. And the other material is HDPE, high density polyethylene, which is typically installed with by directional drilling, things like that. PVC performs pretty good too, but I feel like it definitely needs to be scanned. We've also seen brand new PVC that's installed, and the contractors were lazy, and you could tell that they couldn't get pipes together, so they just pulled the rubber gaskets out to get them to go, and you'll never know. It'll pass visual inspection all day. So we found some of that before, so I feel very strongly that has to be electroscanned upon installation.
Now, is this equipment we buy or that you come out and handle?
We do both, so we don't sell to contractors, and the reason is that we like to have independence. If they do rehabilitation, we don't allow them to buy our technology, so there's complete independence on that. But we also perform the service, or the municipality can buy the technology. And it adds on to your existing CCTV truck, so you're not buying a whole truck, you're just buying basically the probe and the computer programs and things like that, and it adds on to your current CCTV cable and reel.
And it's in the $1 million range?
No, the equipment is about 150 to 185, depending on the size of the system, which I have a feeling
Are
you
we
guys have.
talking 150?
150,000,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it faster than TV?
It's about 3 times faster. We pull the probe through 45 to 60 feet a minute. There's no stopping or anything like that. Like, you're not coding, so it just goes. Yeah.
How often does the technology change?
Change. So we do make more tools in critical sewers. It's all cloud-based, so a report is available within about 5 minutes. Kishan saw the report right away after it was done. So we do make improvements in the cloud when it comes to sorting, being able to upload your CCTV, being able to compare things in there. But the actual field technology, we've made a couple improvements on the pigtail because it kept leaking and it kept shorting out, which we do basically. We don't do a program where you send it back and we charge you for maintenance. We maintenance basically everything it's included in the purchase price. So we were able to kind of make a more robust pigtail on the end of that to prevent that leaking. But the ASTM and the actual technology, it hasn't changed since 1995.
Wow.
So, yeah,
it's been tried and
electricity is
tested.
still the same. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was trained never to buy the first issue of anything.
Yeah, ElectroScan, our CEO, he purchased all of the IP. We're the only provider, we're the only people in the world that provide this technology, which we're really proud of. He bought the IP for this in 2011. And it used to be kind of on this really clunky machine that wasn't user-friendly, and now it attaches to CCTV trucks and it's cloud-based and things like that. But yeah, so we've been doing this since 2011.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when your crew comes out for, on a contract for cleaning, what's your ballpark estimate for price? How much dollars per foot? Can you give some indication at least?
Yeah, so for like 6-inch to 15-inch, that's where we're able to use a sliding funnel plug to hold back some water so that we can get a full assessment of the pipe. We're between like $3 and $5 a foot, depending on the size of the scope. And then if you get into larger diameter pipe, so we did a 21-inch for you, which we consider a larger diameter. We just scanned from the water line and below, so we didn't get the crown of the pipe. So if we want to get the entire 360-degree wall of the pipe, we have to plug that pipe, which can be a very large undertaking. But with it coming right off the pump station, you could just turn your pumps off, so you guys are actually in kind of a unique situation to surcharge this pipe for us. So we just scanned it from the water line and below. That electricity needs a medium, it's not just gonna jump to the crown of the pipe, it needs a medium to carry it there, and it does that through water.
How's that compare with CCTV, cost-wise?
We're more expensive. Yeah, we're like about 1.5 to 2 times more, so,
I think CCTV is about 1.5 or 1.8.
yeah,
Many times better.
in my opinion, yeah. You know, I would rather take my TV dollars and really feel like I have a strong idea of where my infiltration is. Maybe I have to scan less amount of an area, but then be able to make really good rehab decisions, so.
What's the significance of the pinhole leakage? So most of these were pinhole,
Right.
right, 90-some% in the first pipe, or?
There was, there was over 300 pinholes in the
Right,
bottom of that
so we've got 300 pinholes. Do those pinholes get larger over time? Do we know that?
So,
Or are they,
from what
are we
we've
still
found,
dealing with?
They definitely don't get smaller. So it's hard to say, but typically they do get worse over time. The pipe is constantly having activity, stuff running through it, water systems, pressure outside the pipe and then going down, pressure outside, going down, water systems coming in, going down. So that begins to wear on the pipe. Just the way that the joints in your clay aren't there anymore, that's again from water pressure on that joint over and over and over a period of time, and that joint is eventually going to just completely kind of deteriorate. So pinholes, especially seeing this many pinholes in a pipe is not typical. So in my opinion, that pipe is going through a process of getting softer and degrading, and it's
And
go-
those
gonna
pinholes
get
were
worse.
only in the bottom.
That's just the pinholes in the bottom, yeah.
So, that was maybe a third full?
I think you guys thought there was about 4 inches or 5 inches of water in that pipe.
Yes, it was
So
not full at all.
It was
Under
very low.
wet weather flow, since it's in a wetlandish area, we're looking at much more inflow during wet weather then.
Yeah,
So if you kind of use you've got a drip occasionally in your sink, and then you look at how it adds up.
right. Yeah, we call it, death by 1,000 pinholes. I mean, it's one of those things where, like you're saying, a drip in a sink,
Maybe bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's not an issue if it's 1 or 2 people, but when it's every single customer, with a drippy sink and a drippy toilet and a drippy faucet outside, now you have an issue.
Right.
So that's kind of the same thing with the pinholes.
Yeah, but the feedback that we got from the technician who was there at the site, he mentioned that these pinholes are pretty small, so you can
Yeah.
monitor it over a period of time, come back after 2-3 years, and then see, since this baseline is already established, see if the pinhole has become larger or what is the rate at which it's becoming larger. So right now,
Exactly.
one doesn't have to be concerned, but we'll have to see how it becomes bigger or how much period of time. So repeat the same test after 2-3 years, 2 or 3 years, and see how it.
Another thing I would do is I'd be careful on my cleaning of the pipe, because I feel like this pipe is the material is probably a little soft. In Canada, they call it getting punky. It's almost like a sponge. So if you do super aggressive cleaning passes also, it could pull some of that pipe, or maybe damage it a little bit, because it's not, it looks to me like it's not cured properly. So it's a little bit, softer.
And-
I would just monitor it.
And when it's punky, then it is susceptible to heavy trucks rolling over it for cracking it?
No, it's more susceptible to, like if you were to run a heavy cleaning system through it, that it's gonna basically, just like you're washing a car, if you have like chippy paint, some of that
Yeah,
paint's
yeah.
gonna kind of start to flake off.
Gotcha.
I would monitor it. I'm sure you guys have bigger fish to fry in your system. This was recently rehabbed, but in my opinion, I would specify electroscan so that you guys don't get another pipe like this, and warranty inspection. Make sure you inspect it so that you can hopefully catch these pinholes, and then you can come to the contractor and be like, hey, you gotta line it again. We got pinholes, and we're not
Does
gonna accept
anyone
them.
know when it was rehabbed?
2012, I believe.
Yes,
is
Tim?
the-
When Steve Leonard was here, they actually televised that section of line when we were doing some other work, and they found some spiral cracks in that area that we attributed possibly to the multiple large trucks that were coming over at that time. So that's why they actually did the CIPP in that section.
So for structural as well?
Yep.
Okay.
It's out of warranty.
At this point, you are in fact correct, yes.
Oh, thank you. I thought maybe you'd buy the extended one.
We thought about it, but wasn't in budget.
Wasn't an option.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you guys. I left you guys a copy of this in my card, so if you guys come up with any questions, there's a couple ASTM standards, don't hesitate to send me an email.
This was very interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's you, thanks.
Yeah, if we assume that
You don't want to
took
take a
it,
neighbor.
put the inside out balloon and pull that back. I know that, it's still, it's gonna be
Are you moving on to B?
I believe we are going to be moving into closed session now. Is that what we decided?
No, we were gonna move it till after closed session and proceed.
No.
C will be after closed session. B
Yes.
is the question, that's what's up right now. So
Yeah.
it's the
Right.
pleasure of the chair and the rest of the board as to whether
I
to
don't
do
think
that
B
now.
will take them.
I don't think it'll take
Okay, let's do B then.
So we do 4B,
Yeah, for B.
authorize the acting general manager to execute a contract with Spencer Turbine Company to replace the gas blower in an amount not to exceed $35,540. So we have two gas blowers, the digester gas blowers which draw gas from the low pressure header and feed it to the boilers or to the waste gas flare. And on June 28th, we had a failure of the blower. We actually had only one blower at that point of time because the second one had gone to Southern California for servicing or for getting repaired. So we were left with only one boiler and that one blower, and that failed on June 28th. So our staff, Tim Costello, had to actually take the had to drive in the middle of the night to Southern California to pick up the repaired blower and come back because we were left with no blower.
They
And
can do
then-
it on Amazon?
And then we realized that that blower which has been repaired is also gone past its life. The mega reading was low and we don't know how long it will survive. So we have sent the second blower for repair. Right now it's at the workshop. And therefore, we thought it was more prudent to buy a blower because the lead time for these blowers is also pretty large. And we should definitely have a new blower. So staff recommendation is, we have two options. Either we go for one blower which would cost us $17,770 right now, or replace both the blowers with two new blowers. Rather, we can keep one new blower installed and have one as a spare, so that once the second one is being rebuilt and we don't know how long it's going to serve, then at least we can have the second one ready for replacement because of the long replacement. So staff recommends that the board of directors authorize to purchase either one gas blower costing $17,770 or two gas blowers for $35,540. Any questions?
I'm in favor of two glass blowers. Yeah,
I have a question. So, I'm in favor of 2 gas blowers too, especially, given the age of the existing units and what Tim had to go through to, get a repaired one. What would happen if we did order 2? Like, could we have the other 2 maybe like rebuilt, or have one of the 2 rebuilt so that we had like a third on hand?
That's what we're doing already.
Okay,
The first one has already been rebuilt and is right now installed.
okay.
That is working. The second one is in their workshop, which is being rebuilt.
Well, I would just say let's buy 2.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's enough money.
Are we going into closed session?
So we can go into closed session now, or we could just do the monthly manager's report. Is that gonna be extensive?
No. Monthly manager's report is in your packet, and if you have any questions, staff is here ready to answer.
I have no questions.
No questions? Okay, the attorney's report, is that going to be,
I'll be talking enough with my colleagues in closed session. I don't feel the
Okay.
need to make any further reports.
great. Then why don't we move into closed session?
Come back out after the handle item 4C.
And handle 4C, right?
Force you come back for, yes.
So we'll start.
Do we have to report out?
Yes.
There, yes.
There is nothing to report out from closed session.
Perfect.
So we are moving to item 4C.
Go ahead.
Subject,
Okay.
yeah.
Go forth.
Authorize the acting general manager to amend the contract with Edgecombe Law Group LLP for legal services to represent SAM and Ecological Rights Foundation versus Sewer Authority Midcoastside, and increase the authorized amount by $200,000 for a total contract not to exceed $400,000.
And Keisha, you had said that there is still remaining money in what we have already agreed to pay them,
Yes, out
in the
of
amount of 80,000
around
remaining?
80,000 is what is remaining. That's what I gathered from from our accounts department, and therefore it is suggested that since we still have many more hours to be given to ERF to work on this, I suggest that we increase the authorized amount by another 100,000.
In addition to the 80, so a total
In
of
addition to the 80,
180,000?
Yes,
The 80 not including services in May or
May,
June.
June.
Oh,
Or
okay.
June or
June and
July,
July.
sorry, June or July.
So
So
Yeah.
it's
we're
about
through 2
20,000.
months.
Current through May.
Yeah,
So about
80,000.
how much is it?
about 60, cause she's
So
been doing
60
about
of that
10,000
80.
a month.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, that's
Okay.
about right. That's consistent, yeah.
So could I have a motion?
Move per staff, $100,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, we're moving on to item 5A, monthly manager's report.
We finished that.
We finished,
We finished
We
it?
did, we did 5 and 6.
Attorney's report, we're not doing because
Nothing
we've
more.
already
I
done it.
have nothing more to add to what I've already
Director's
said.
reports,
That's
and
good.
I have something to say.
No
Okay.
penalty for brevity.
I think Gail Erickson was on this board. Was she on the SAM board?
No.
I know she was on Granada for a
Granada.
very long time and did a whole lot in terms of trails and parks for our community. She died.
I know.
And so I just think that if folks want to send a note of condolences to her family,
If you have an address, I haven't been able to locate an
I will be
address.
happy to get an address
Alright.
for you because it's, Gail was a very cheerful and kind person who really cared about the environment of this whole coast side and
It's very
and
sad.
made herself involved, so.
Great.
If I could
Okay.
request that when we adjourn, that we adjourn in her memory.
I think that would be a good thing.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Are there topics for future agenda board consideration? Okay, and then maybe we could give a minute's silence for
Before
Gail.
before that, I have one item. I'd like the chair
Yes.
to nominate a pro tem secretary for the minutes which were approved today. Can I have a pro tem secretary?
I can do it.
We do not have a.
Yes,
So somebody.
It's just signing, right?
Just saying.
Scott,
do it.
Scott Boyd will do it.
Scott, okay, thank you.
Good.
So a moment's silence before we adjourn.
For Gail Erickson.
For
For
Gail
Gail Erickson.
Erickson. Thank you all, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.